Welcome back to another Battle Wagon adventure. You have patiently waited for the results of what is going on the brackets. And the answer is a night light. So yeah, I bought a light bar. It's going on the roof. That's about it. I already have the wires run from my other video. I've obviously got the brackets on already. If you're sizing brackets and making them yourself, physically put the light bar in, bolt the brackets onto it, and then drill the holes onto whatever your structure is. That's how I line mine up, and that's the only guaranteed way to get it even remotely close to being right. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this now, and this will be interesting because it's not the lightest bar and I gotta reach across the whole car to put it over. So that might be a challenge, but I think we got it. As a random side note, I did something I always wanted to do with the Battle Wagon yesterday. There was a spot that was the first or second spot at the store when I was picking up some hardware to mount this. There's a carriage right in the frickin' middle of it, so no one was taking it. What I did is I sped up and I rammed the shit out of it. Actually, I'm surprised. This is the only thing I found. Maybe a little mark there, maybe that, maybe. So that should be a testament to how durable both bumpers and plasti dip are. So if you're thinking about ramming a carriage, so much fun. If you ever get the chance, I recommend doing it. It'll be better when I get a full bar on the front, because then I won't even have to worry about that much. So if you're mounting anything like this, I think the easiest way to do it before you're worried about getting all the alignment perfect, just get the bolts started right there on the back of the bracket going through. Also, side note, if you only have one larger washer, put it on the top side, the load bearing side, because this is the weight's pulling it down. So you want the extra support on the top because that's bearing the brunt of the load. Do that on both sides as far as getting the bolts started. Then loosen up these angle bolts so that way it can sway a little freely. Or you can pull the light back off if you really feel like it. I'm not going to because that's too much effort for me right now. Then while it's loose, what you can do is tighten up the bolts on both sides. Then after those two top bracket bolts are tightened, you can adjust the angle at the end and tighten the side bolts. So that's how I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to hopefully snug it up a little bit so it's one off the roof and two a little closer to the bottom. What you could kind of see me doing there is I was trying to center this. So I have my mark still from when I was stenciling. It's kind of visible in the light, and then I found the center bolt on the light rack, and then I was just trying to shift it over while the bolts were still somewhat loose. There's a little bit of a slot there on both sides, so you got a little bit of a shift, but it's not a ton. What you also may have to do is try to slide the back brackets over a little bit, which is what I was trying to do for a second there as well. As long as it's, you know, within a ½ inch or so, it's gonna look fine. You just don't want it substantially off. Now that it's reasonably centered, what I'm gonna do is tighten the side bolts up entirely, get the angle of the light correct, and then do the side bolts from the bracket into the light and lock that into place as well. There you have it. The light bar is now installed on the front. As you can see, it's not perfectly even the whole way across, but my bigger concern was just keeping it off the roof because these things do pump out some serious heat. Spacing off the Battle Wagon badge on top is fairly even, actually. It's just the rack itself is still not level, so it's for that reason you're getting a little bit of that cockeyed look. I tried bending up this bracket a little by hand. It's obviously a little more difficult with how it's sitting, but overall it's good enough. Again, this is not a show car. This doesn't have to be perfectly even. It's more a practicality thing than anything else. Now what I got to do is get the wiring and the switch set up for this. What I'll be doing for the wiring, because I don't want them visible from everywhere, is I'll keep them mostly hidden, but I don't want to drill additional holes because the risk of something new leaking is not worth it for me. I already pulled up some of the pillars yesterday to check if there's any easy holes to go through, and there isn't without removing all of these rails, and I said that's really just not worth it for what I'm trying to do. So now, because this is just a straight plug, what I'll probably do is just zip tie it up here to get it tucked away, run it down back by the rail. I want this plug to be relatively hidden, so if I run this back and then loop it, that'll sit a little bit behind the rail, probably right around there. And because I wired it yesterday, I've got the sheathing wire which fits nicely right up in this seam. I'll probably caulk it in there to make sure it doesn't run out. Just run it up behind the rail and to the light bar itself. I'm gonna do that now. I also gotta connect the battery terminals, which means disconnecting the battery, all that fun bit. This is my first ever aux lighting job, so let's hope I don't blow anything up. Here's my relay and all my additional wiring that I ran yesterday. Get it all set up now and find out if it works. The struggle I'm having now is deciding where I'm gonna actually connect the terminals to. I got the struggle of that's bigger than the bolt that I'm putting it around, or it's too small for the terminal itself. What I'll probably have to do is just source a couple washers, see what I got on hand, and then try to make it fit that way, which I'm not thrilled about. It's always the 10mm socket. Every fucking time. They're wired, they're ready to go. I don't have it through a fuse box that's connected to the ignition. If you really want to have it turn off with the car guaranteed, then it's easy enough to do. Rather than just using the fuse between the two terminals, you just wire it off of one in the actual fuse box. Use a multimeter to see one that turns on and off with the key. But otherwise, let's see how this does. My only other real complaint about this kit, I don't think it'll ever be an actual materialized issue, but if you look at this switch, the red LED is always on. I'm worried that over time that could potentially drain the battery, especially on weekends that I don't really start the car, or you know, if I leave it sitting for a week at an airport or something. My guess is I'll probably go back and rewire it to go through the fuse box on the ignition switch at some point, but for now I think it's good enough. There you have it, another Battle Wagon adventure is complete. I have my first ever set of auxiliary lights. So thank you again for watching. The Battle Wagon has survived another adventure, and I will have more material soon.